Before Loki became the whisper behind every disaster and the spark behind every miracle, he was simply a child born into a world that feared him long before it understood him. And like Thor, who was shaped by thunder, or Odin, who carried the wisdom of countless ages, Loki came from a place far older, far wilder, and far less forgiving, Jötunheim, the land of frost giants. His father was Farbody, a giant whose name meant cruel striker, a being associated with sudden, violent storms. His mother was Loki, sometimes described as delicate and thin. Like a leaf trembling in the wind, mythologists later saw something symbolic in their union: fire and air, chaos and movement, a pairing not meant to create stability, but disruption. Loki was never meant to be ordinary. Even as a child, he was strange. The giants found his quickness in settling. He didn't shout or break things like they did. He watched, he listened, he learned. And worst of all for them, he understood. To beings of brute strength, intelligence was not a gift, it was a threat. And so Loki grew in a place where he never quite belonged, too clever for giants, too unpredictable for their rigid social order. Stories say he could mimic voices perfectly, transform into birds or fish without warning, and manipulate small illusions even as a boy. It wasn't magic the way the gods practiced it, it was more like instinct, as if his very blood carried the shape of trickery. But fate shifted the day Loki met Odin. Some say Odin wandered Jötunheim searching for wisdom. Others say he sought alliances against rising powers. Whatever the reason, he encountered Loki and recognized something rare: not strength, not loyalty, but potential. Odin saw value where others saw danger. And so he offered Loki a place in Asgard, not as a prisoner or servant, but as a blood brother. This pact has puzzled scholars for centuries. Why would the All-Father bind himself to a creature of chaos? The Vikings themselves offered a simple explanation: order cannot exist without acknowledging chaos. Odin understood this better than anyone. He wielded runes, but he also embraced shadow. Loki was the piece of the world that Asgard wished did not exist, but needed anyway. Entering Asgard was the first time Loki felt something like admiration. These were strong, proud, luminous. They lived with purpose, structure, and honor, everything Loki had never known. But admiration does not guarantee acceptance. Some gods trusted him, some tolerated him, others feared him. Still, Loki became part of their daily lives, sharing their meals, sitting in their halls, joining them in their schemes and journeys. He was not like Thor, whose presence filled a room with warmth and noise. Loki carried a quieter energy, not malicious, but unsettling. A single raised eyebrow from him could start an argument. A single suggestion could alter the course of a feast or a battle. He was a god, but not of thunder, war, or poetry. He had no domain, no temples, no worshippers. His power didn't come from rulership, it came from influence. And influence can shape worlds. The Vikings, who lived with uncertainty every day, storms at sea, sudden raids, unpredictable winters, understood Loki deeply. In their minds, chaos was not evil, it was natural. It explained why life was hard, why plans failed, why fate twisted suddenly. Loki represented this truth, that even among the gods, not everything could be controlled. But Loki's presence in Asgard was also a warning. He could help the gods just as easily as he could undo them. He could save a life in the morning and end another by nightfall. He was the unpredictable force woven into the fabric of the cosmos. And Odin, who had bound himself to Loki, sensed the tension growing, not yet fully, but enough to know that this god of chaos, born in frost and fire, would one day shape the destiny of all realms. For better and for worse. For fate had already begun to twist, and Loki, the child of storm and leaf, was at its center. Loki's arrival in Asgard brought curiosity, caution, and quiet fascination. He was not a warrior like Thor, nor a scholar like Odin. He was something far more difficult to define. And the more the gods watched him, the more they realized that Loki's greatest power was not his trickery, but his ability to become anything. Shape-shifting, to the Vikings, was no small gift. It wasn't just physical transformation, it meant shifting one's identity, one's role, even one's destiny. While other gods mastered weapons or magic, Loki mastered possibility. He could become a salmon slipping through a river's current, a mare galloping through the night, a bird soaring over mountains, or a fly hiding in a feast hall. Sometimes he shifted to escape danger, other times to create it. But at the heart of every transformation was the same truth: Loki never wanted to be trapped in one form or one fate. To the Aesir, these feats were unsettling. Gods were meant to be stable, rooted in their purpose. Thor was strength, Thor was justice, Odin was wisdom, Frigg was foresight, Freya was love and magic. But Loki, he broke categories. He crossed boundaries without hesitation. He blurred lines that the gods preferred to keep clear. And that was what made him powerful. Some gods believed Loki used his transformations to mock them. Others thought he used them to spy or deceive. But the truth was more complicated. Loki shifted shapes because he felt more like change itself than a single being. His transformations were expressions of emotion. When he felt threatened, he became small. When he felt clever, he became swift. When he felt trapped, he became something with wings. But when he felt deeply joy, fear, or desperation, the transformations came unbidden, wild and instinctive. It was as if chaos shaped him from within, answering emotions before thought. This made Loki unpredictable, not only to others but to himself. Despite this, there were moments when Loki used his shifting with surprising compassion. He saved Thor by becoming a mare to distract a destructive stallion. He rescued Iwan by taking the form of a falcon. He slipped through locks and iron chains to free gods who were trapped. But there were other moments, darker moments, when Loki used his gift to twist events toward disaster. He whispered poison into ears, disguised himself to inflame arguments, or turn harmless tricks into calamities. This duality confused the gods. How could someone capable of kindness also bring suffering? The answer, perhaps, lies in Loki's relationship with truth. Where Odin saw truth in runes and sacrifice, Loki saw truth as a fragile mask that could be changed at will. For Loki, truth was fluid, a story that could be rewritten. He believed lies were not inherently evil. They were simply tools. Like fire or wind, a lie could save a life. A lie could start a war. It depended entirely on the one who wielded it. And Loki wielded lies with the same mastery that Thor wielded Mjölnir. He wasn't malicious by nature, only restless. He pushed boundaries because he couldn't understand why they were there. He broke customs because they felt like cages. He challenged gods because he wanted reactions, not reverence. Yet this restlessness carried a quiet loneliness. Loki belonged nowhere fully, not among giants, not among gods, not among mortals. He was included, but never trusted. Welcomed, but never embraced. This loneliness festered in him like a spark searching for fuel. And over time, the spark grew stronger. Still, for many years, Loki remained a companion to the gods. He traveled with Thor on dangerous journeys. He feasted with Odin. He played with the children of Asgard. He solved problems that no other god could solve. But each solution came with a shadow. Each favor had a cost. Each joke carried a sting. For Loki's nature could not be denied. Wherever he went, change followed, and not all change is gentle. Deep down, the gods sensed what was coming. Loki's shifting forms hinted at a shifting fate, but none of them yet understood how far his chaotic spirit would go, or how deeply it would reshape the destiny of the 9 realms. For chaos, once welcomed into a home, does not stay in the corners. It spreads. It tests walls. It reveals cracks. And Loki, the eternal shapeshifter, was destined to slip through every crack they tried to hide. For all of Loki's chaos, trickery, and unpredictable schemes, there is one truth about him that even the gods themselves could never deny: many of the greatest treasures of Asgard exist because of him. And yet, none of these treasures were born from kindness or loyalty. They were born from Loki's mistakes and his need to fix them before the gods tore him apart. The story begins with a simple act of mischief. Loki, bored and restless, decided to play a harmless joke on Thor's wife, Sif, while she slept. Loki crept to her bedside and cut off all her golden hair that shimmered like fields of wheat under the sun, a symbol of fertility and blessing among the gods. To Loki, it was funny. To Sif, it was humiliation. To Thor, it was war. When Thor discovered what had happened, the whole of Asgard shook beneath his anger. He grabbed Loki by the throat. lifting him off the ground as Mjölnir crackled with the promise of violence. Desperate, Loki pleaded for a chance to fix the problem. "I will bring Sleipnir more beautiful than before," he gasped. Thor did not trust him, but he released him, knowing that Loki's fear often produced useful results. So Loki fled to Svartalfheim, the realm of the dwarves, whose craftsmanship was unmatched by any beings in the 9 realms. He approached the sons of Ivaldi, renowned smiths of magical artifacts, and begged them to forge new golden hair for Sif. They agreed, and their creation was flawless. The hair gleamed like sunlight woven into metal, and when placed on Sif's head, it grew like real hair, flowing naturally and radiating divine beauty. But Loki, true to his nature, could not leave well enough alone. He boasted to another pair of dwarven brothers, Brock and Sindri Eitri, claiming they could never craft treasures as magnificent as those produced by Ivaldi's sons. The brothers were proud. Far too proud to ignore such an insult. They accepted the challenge. Realizing he may have gone too far, Loki panicked. If they produced inferior items, he would win the bet. If they produced superior ones, the gods would expect even more rewards. Rewards Loki couldn't deliver. So Loki resorted to sabotage. As Brock and Sindri worked the forge, Loki transformed into a fly and bit them repeatedly, attempting to break their concentration. But dwarven focus is legendary. And despite Loki's interference, 3 remarkable treasures emerged from the flames. 1. Gullinburst, a golden boar whose bristles glowed like fire, able to run across land, sea, or air. It became Freyr's loyal companion. 2. Draupnir, a ring for Odin that multiplied itself every 9 nights. It dripped 8 identical rings, symbolizing abundance and eternal wealth. 3. Mjölnir's hammer, short-handled because Loki's final bite broke the rhythm of the forging process, but powerful beyond imagination. The hammer alone could break mountains, bless marriages, destroy giants, and return to Thor's hand no matter how far it was thrown. It would become the most iconic weapon in Norse mythology, and it existed only because Loki's prank spiraled out of control. When the treasures were presented before the gods, Loki tried desperately to downplay Mjölnir's greatness, but Thor saw it instantly. The hammer felt alive, humming with thunder. Odin declared the dwarves the victors of the contest. As punishment for trying to cheat the smiths, Loki's lips were sewn shut, a symbolic reminder that even the god of lies must silence his tongue when faced with truth. But what the gods later realized was far more profound. Without Loki, Asgard would possess none of these treasures. No Mjölnir, no Gungnir, Odin's spear. No Draupnir, no Skidbladnir, Freyr's ship that could fold into a pocket. No Gullinbursti. Every artifact shaped the balance of divine power. Every tool altered the fate of gods and giants alike. Loki was chaos, but chaos that created as often as it destroyed. This duality puzzled the Aesir. How could someone capable of such sabotage also bring forth the tools that protected their world? How could the same hands that caused disaster also forge destiny? But that was the nature of Loki. He was not good or evil. He was change, the spark that ignited both creation and conflict. And deep beneath the golden halls of Asgard, the gods began to sense an uncomfortable truth. If Loki's mistakes could create wonders, what would his greatest mistakes unleash? The answer, though distant, was already forming in the shadows. A future where Loki would shape not treasures, but tragedy. Among all the strange tales in Norse mythology of gods disguising themselves, giants shaping mountains, serpents coiling around the world, there is one story that stands apart. A story so unusual, so bewildering, that even the skalds who recited it spoke with a half-smile, half-reverence. It is the story of how Loki became the mother of Odin's 8-legged horse, Sleipnir. To understand how such a thing happened, one must first understand the stakes. Asgard was still young, its walls unfinished, its defenses fragile. The gods needed protection from giants who could strike without warning. One day, a mysterious builder, a giant in disguise, approached Odin and offered a deal. He would build an impenetrable wall around Asgard in a single winter. His price, not gold, not land, but Freya, the most desired goddess, and the sun and the moon themselves. The gods were horrified by the demand. But Loki, confident in his cunning, whispered that they should accept under one condition: the builder must complete the fortification without any help from others. The builder agreed. What Loki did not consider was the giant stallion, Svalilfari, a powerful horse capable of dragging stones the size of mountains. With its help, the wall rose with incredible speed. Each night the gods watched, worried, as the builder inched closer to success. If he completed the wall in time, Asgard would lose its greatest treasures, and Loki would be blamed. Desperate, Loki realized he had to intervene. He could not kill the horse. He could not sabotage the stones. He could not break the oath the gods had sworn. So he turned to the one skill he had always mastered, transformation. One night, as the builder and Svalilfari prepared to gather more stones, Loki slipped into the forest and transformed into a beautiful mare. Not just any mare, one whose form radiated grace, warmth, and irresistible allure. When the stallion saw her, his discipline shattered like thin ice. What followed was a chase through moonlit trees, the echo of hooves, and the confusion of a giant calling for a horse who refused to obey. The builder could do nothing but watch in fury as his progress halted. Without Svalilfari, he could not finish the wall. He failed the bargain. His disguise broke, and the gods, led by Thor, drove him away. Asgard was saved, a crisis was averted, but Loki did not return. Weeks passed, then months. The gods spoke of him with annoyance, with worry, with frustration, until one day, Loki appeared again, weakened, exhausted, but cradling something miraculous. A newborn foal, gray as storm clouds, silent as midnight wind, and possessing 8 legs, each moving with a natural grace. Its name was Sleipnir, the slippery one, destined to become the finest horse in all the 9 realms, faster than lightning, able to ride on land, sea, and sky, and even capable of entering the underworld and returning untouched. Odin accepted Sleipnir without hesitation. He saw not a strange creature, but a gift, a tool that could guide him through the mysteries of the cosmos. The 8 legs symbolized movement across realms, a connection between life and death, between knowledge and the unknown. But the gods also saw something deeper in Loki's sacrifice. He had become a mother, willingly or not, to save Asgard. He had taken on a burden no other god would even consider. And for a brief moment, Loki was not the trickster, not the liar, not the agent of chaos. He was the one who preserved the safety of the gods through a choice that forever blurred the boundaries of identity. The Vikings did not mock this story. To them, it was a reminder that the world is full of contradictions. Power can come from humility, chaos can guard order, and even the strangest acts may carry hidden wisdom. Sleipnir carried Odin into battle, into prophecy, and into realms no other being could reach. And every time the All-Father rode his 8-legged steed, the gods were reminded of Loki's strange and paralleled ability. He could create disaster, but he could also give birth to greatness. Sleipnir's hooves echoed through the 9 realms as a reminder that destiny is not always forged by hammers, spears, or spells. Sometimes it is shaped by the unpredictable choices of a god who walked between order and chaos. For years, Loki had walked the thin line between ally and enemy, laughter and danger, loyalty and betrayal. But there comes a moment in every story when balance ends, when one choice tips a life toward darkness. For Loki, that moment began with a dream, not his dream, but the dream of another god, Baldr, the shining son of Odin. Baldr was loved by all. He was the embodiment of purity, light, truth, and gentle strength. Even those who lived in the shadow, giants, dwarves, spirits, respected him. But one night, Baldr began to dream of death. Not metaphorical death, but the cold, silent void of true ending. The gods panicked. A world without Baldr would be a world without hope, a world where darkness could swallow everything. So Odin, desperate to save his son, traveled to the underworld and learned a terrible truth. Baldr would die, and his death would begin the chain of events leading to Ragnarök. Refusing to accept fate, Frigg, Baldr's mother, sought to protect him. She traveled the realms and made every creature, every plant, every stone, every weapon swear an oath never to harm him. Fire swore, water swore, metals swore, beasts swore, even sickness swore. Only one small plant, too young and fragile to be taken seriously, was overlooked: mistletoe. Soon Baldr became invincible. The gods turned this blessing into a game. They threw axes, spears, and stones at him, laughing as each weapon bounced harmlessly away. To them it was entertainment. To Loki, it was opportunity. Loki, watching from the shadows, felt a bitterness he couldn't fully name. Was it jealousy? Was it resentment toward Baldr's perfection? Or was it simply that fate had whispered to him, and he answered? Whatever the reason, Loki disguised himself as an old woman and approached Frigg. With gentle questions, he learned the secret. Mistletoe alone had never sworn the oath. A seed of catastrophe was planted. Loki crafted a small spear or dart from the plant, and delicate, harmless in appearance, yet carrying the only force in the cosmos capable of killing Baldr. He then approached Higher, Baldr's blind brother, who stood apart from the games, unable to join in. "Let me help you take part," Loki said softly. "Baldr cannot be harmed." He placed the dart in Hor's hand, guided his aim, and Baldr fell. The hall went silent. The laughter died instantly. The gods stared as the light of the world crumpled to the floor. No one understood. No one could accept it. Then the truth came like a storm. Then the truth came like a storm. Loki had killed Baldr, or rather, he had orchestrated the death that fate foretold. Some gods screamed, some wept, some simply stood frozen. Unable to process the impossible, Baldr's soul descended to hell, the realm of the dead. Frigg pleaded for someone to journey there and bring him back. Odin chose Hermr, who rode Sleipnir into the underworld, begging Hel to release the shining god. Hel agreed on one condition: every being in the world must weep for Baldr. They did. Humans cried, animals cried, stones, metals, and trees cried. The cosmos itself mourned. All except one figure, a giantess named KKK. She refused to cry. She said the world gained nothing from Baldr's return, and when she vanished, the gods knew it was Loki in disguise. Baldr remained in the underworld. The last hope of the gods faded. From that moment on, Loki was no longer a mischievous companion. He was branded the enemy of the gods, the one whose actions set Ragnarök in motion. The Aesir captured him. They bound him in a cave deep beneath the earth, using the entrails of his own son as chains forged to turn to iron. A serpent was placed above him, dripping venom onto his face. His wife Sigyn stayed by his side, catching the poison in a bowl, but every time she emptied it, a drop struck Loki. Wrenching screams from him, so violent that the earth itself trembled. The Vikings said these tremors were earthquakes, Loki's agony echoing through the land. Yet fate held one more truth: Loki would not remain bound forever. One day the chains would break, and the Trickster would rise again, not as a friend, but as the harbinger of the end. Baldr's death was not just a tragedy. It was the turning point, the moment Loki stepped from the edge of mischief into the abyss of destiny, and the 9 realms would never be the same. Deep beneath the earth, where sunlight never reached and time felt frozen, Loki lay bound in his prison. Venom dripped from the serpent above him, each drop burning like fire. His screams shook mountains, his rage echoed through caverns, his mind twisted between fury, regret, and the cold certainty of what was coming. For Loki had seen it the end, long before his chains, long before Baldr's death, long before he ever stepped foot in Asgard. Fate had whispered to him, Ragnarök was inevitable, and Loki would stand at its center, not as a trickster or an outcast, but as a catalyst of destiny. The chains held him for ages, yet even iron has limits, and when the first signs of Ragnarök began to ripple across the 9 realms, the bonds that held Loki trembled. It started small. The sun dimmed. The wind grew cold. The world's serpent stirred in the deep. Then came the great wolf Fenrir, Loki's own son, whose jaws could swallow the sky. His bindings loosened as the cosmos cracked out, and somewhere in the underworld, Hel, Loki's daughter, gathered the dead, warriors and kings. Cowards and wanderers are preparing them for a march that would shake the foundations of existence. Even the seas began to churn. Jormungandr's massive coils writhed in the deep, pushing waves high enough to swallow mountains. The universe was preparing for its final storm. And so, at last, Loki's chain split. The venom stopped falling. The cavern shook as he stood, weakened but unbroken, a shadow with fire in his veins. He did not crawl from the darkness. He rose. When he emerged, The world was already unraveling. The sky turned blood-red. Stars fell like sparks from a dying fire. Midgard trembled under the weight of dreams turning to nightmares. Loki moved through the chaos like one returning home. He gathered his children at Fenrir, Hel, Jormungandr, and the legions that followed them, giants, monsters, the dead, and beings cast aside by the gods. Each step brought him closer to the great plain of Vigrid, where the final battle would be fought. The gods, too, prepared. Odin with his spear Gungnir, Thor with Mjölnir, Freyr with his shining sword, Tyr, Heimdall, Freya, each ready to meet the end not with fear, but with grim acceptance. For gods are not immortal, they simply endure longer. When Loki arrived at Vigrid, the world was already breaking apart. The air crackled with thunder. Mountains split. Fire rose from the realm of Muspel. And leading those flames was Surtur, the fire giant destined to burn the cosmos to ash. Odin and Loki stood across from one another, to brothers not by blood, but by oath, to forces that once shared feasts, laughter, and the shaping of worlds. Now divided by fate that neither could escape. Odin did not speak, neither did Loki. Some destinies do not require words. The battle erupted with the force of colliding stars. Thor faced Jormungandr, each blow shaking the sky. Tyr fought Garmr, the monstrous hound of hell. Freyr faced Surtur in a duel of flame and light. Odin charged Fenrir, knowing full well it would be his last act. And in the midst of all this chaos, Loki met Heimdall, the watchman of the gods. Heimdall, who saw everything. Heimdall, who heard the grass grow and the wool on sheep's backs. Heimdall, who had always known Loki's heart better than most. Their battle was unlike the others, not fueled by hatred, but by inevitability. Both struck, both fell, each killing the other in perfect symmetry, as if their lives had been intertwined from the start. Thor killed the serpent killed Thor. Odin died in the jaws of Fenrir. Fenrir died by Odin's sons. And in the end, the fire giant Surtur lifted his burning sword and the world dissolved into flame. But Norse mythology is never a story of simple endings. From the ashes of destruction, a new earth rose, a green, quiet, peaceful. Survivors emerged. Life continued. And though Loki's body fell on the battlefield of Vigrid, his presence did not vanish. For chaos is not evil and order is not eternal. The Vikings believed every ending was simply the beginning of a new cycle. Loki's role was not to destroy for the sake of destruction, but to clear the path for renewal. In this way, Loki's final act was not treachery, but transformation, a necessary fire to burn away the old, so the new could take root. Thus ends the saga of Loki, the trickster who shaped destiny, the outcast who carried prophecy, the force of change who walked between shadow and light, but in every whisper of uncertainty, in every twist of fate, in every spark of unexpected change, Loki still lives.